The security officer's voice sliced through the funeral quiet, contempt curling off every syllable. You think you belong anywhere near a general's burial detail with credentials this sloppy? The voice was sharp, laced with irritated superiority, cutting through the cold morning air hanging over Arlington's white rows of stone. Wind hissed low across the manicured lawn as mourners in dark uniforms shifted uneasily. At the checkpoint arch, halyard ropes tapped against metal with a hollow clink, each sound amplified by the reverent silence of the funeral forming beyond the gates. Sergeant Lucas Breen stood square, jaw tight, blocking the path of a tall black man in a well-worn coat. The man's hands rested calmly at his sides. No badge on display. No uniform. Just steady eyes and a quiet presence that felt out of place to Breen, too still, too controlled. Breen stepped forward again, louder this time, trying to reassert dominance as eyes drifted toward them. No one knew what the man would say or what it would trigger. A funeral detail marched in the distance, boots striking pavement in a slow, unified cadence. The rhythm echoed faintly through the corridor of headstones, but the tension at the gate overpowered even the solemn procession. Breen's hand hovered near his holster, not drawing, just posturing as he narrowed his eyes at the man's silence. "Sir, you need to step back." His tone sharpened. "This event is restricted to command-approved personnel, and you're not on any list. So let's not make this difficult." The murmurs began. A few attendees, pausing on the walkway, watched with furrowed brows. Some recognized the arrogance in Breen's posture. Others recognized the stillness in the older man's. The man didn't flinch. He only looked past Breen, toward the distant flagpole where the honor guard prepared. His breathing was slow, controlled, almost ceremonial. Breen interpreted the quiet as defiance. "Look," he snapped, "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this isn't a tourist spot. A 4-star general is being laid to rest. You don't just stroll up without ID." A light breeze rolled through the trees, sending shadows wavering across the path. The man's coat moved slightly, revealing nothing. No medals, no patches, nothing that screamed authority. And yet his presence felt like something carved from stone, steady and immovable. A woman in uniform whispered to her colleague, "Why isn't he arguing back?" The colleague whispered back, "Because people like him don't need to." Security cameras hummed quietly overhead, tracking the moment. Breen stepped closer, voice lowering but brimming with hostility. "Last warning, sir. Step away from the gate." Still the man said nothing. The next word spoken would fracture the uneasy calm hanging over the cemetery. When the man still didn't move, Breen's patience snapped. "Are you ignoring a direct order? Is that it?" His boots scraped against the concrete as he planted himself inches away, his shadow overlapping the man's still frame. Someone recording with a phone sucked in a breath as the tension coiled tighter. Breen jabbed a finger toward the ground. "This area isn't for uninvited guests. You don't belong here. And if you don't step back now, we're going to escalate this." The man finally lifted his gaze fully to meet Breen's. No anger. No challenge. Just an unreadable calm. The kind of calm that unsettles even trained soldiers. A faint metallic clang echoed in the distance as ceremonial rifles were checked for the upcoming salute. The sound slid across the air like a memory brushing the edge of consciousness. Breen continued, louder now, needing the crowd to hear his authority. "People earned the right to stand at that graveside. They served. They bled. And I won't let someone wander in like he's part of it." The man blinked once, slow and reflective. Several attendees shifted in discomfort. One whispered, "Why does he sound like he's talking to a child?" Another muttered, "That guy isn't fazed. At all." Breen stepped even closer. "Say something. Anything. Who are you?" The man's voice finally surfaced, low and steady. "Just here to pay respects." Breen scoffed harshly. "Respect? You don't even have clearance for the outer boundary. You think funerals like this are open walk-ins?" A gust of wind rattled the chain barriers leading toward the burial grounds. The distant rumble of a ceremonial caisson rolling into position reverberated like thunder. The man's hands tightened subtly, barely noticeable, but enough for one observant officer nearby to raise an eyebrow. And for the first time, a thin thread of unease slipped into Breen's voice. "Why won't you tell me who you are?" A quiet internal whisper drifted like a thought through the air. Some truths wait until the breaking point. If they only knew what silence can protect, and what it can reveal. The arrival of a higher authority would turn tension into something far sharper. Colonel Adrian Wolfe emerged from the line of black vehicles rolling to a stop near the ceremonial pathway. His uniform carried an austere weight, ribbons neat, and silver eagle insignias flashed sharply in the muted daylight. He spoke quietly with aides until his attention snapped toward the commotion at the gate. Wolf's steps slowed. Something in the body language, a security officer puffed up like a guard dog, a civilian standing still as stone, and the crowd's shifting energy, made his instincts prickle. He veered off from his aides without explanation. As he approached, the air changed. Conversations quieted. Even the distant horses leading the caisson seemed to pause their rhythmic clopping. "Sergeant Breen," Wolf called out, voice firm but controlled. "What's the issue here?" Breen straightened instantly. "Sir, this individual is attempting unauthorized entry. No ID. No clearance. He refuses to step back." Wolf's gaze scanned the elder man carefully. Not the coat. Not the expression. His eyes lingered on posture. Breathing pattern. The quiet, disciplined awareness radiating beneath the surface. "Sir," Breen added, "he also refuses to provide his name." Wolf studied the man for a long moment. Something familiar flickered, then vanished, like a shadow he couldn't grasp. "May I ask your purpose here?" Wolf said gently. The man's response was even gentler. "To honor a friend." The colonel's jaw shifted. Something about the tone, measured and solemn, felt like a distant echo. A faint audio cue slipped through Wolf's mind, a low, ghost-like hum of radio static, as if a long-dormant memory strained to surface. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, were you part of General Carrick's old unit?" The man didn't answer. One small detail, barely visible, was about to ignite Wolf's buried recognition. Colonel Wolf's eyes sharpened as something beneath the man's coat caught a glint of morning light. Not metal, at least not polished metal, but a faded stitch pattern. Barely there. Almost invisible unless you'd spent years around covert insignias. Wolf's heartbeat shifted. He angled himself slightly, trying to get a clearer view without alarming the crowd. The stitching was rough, hand-sewn into the lining. A crescent shape. Shadow gray thread. Not standard issue. Not ceremonial. But unmistakable. Wolf felt his throat tighten. "Sergeant Breen," he murmured, "step back." Breen frowned. "Sir, he hasn't." "Step back." The command cracked like a whip. Breen jerked in surprise but moved aside, confusion etched across his face. Wolf inhaled slowly. That symbol, no one outside a particular classified tasking group would know it. And only a handful from that group were even alive. He lowered his voice, addressing the man directly. "That stitching, that's from the Night Sentinel rotations. But those missions were scrubbed from official record." The man didn't confirm or deny. His eyes simply held Wolf's, calm as ever. Breen blinked. "Night what?" "Sir, those are just rumors." Wolf ignored him. His focus was locked on the man in front of him. There was only one operator who carried that mark. Only one who stitched it into his inner coat lining after the Black Dusk extraction. A remnant stirred in Wolf's memory, a flicker of grayscale flashback, colors drained as though filtered through dust and memory, a helicopter's door gunner shouting coordinates, a shadow moving through smoke, a voice over comms low and steady, "Night Angel," shifting position. Wolf swallowed hard. "Sir, what is your name?" The man finally spoke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just with the soft weight of truth. "They used to call me Night Angel." Gasps punched through the crowd. Wolf suddenly realized the full gravity of who stood silently before him now. Everything stopped. The breeze. The murmurs. Even the distant clatter of the caisson wheels felt muffled, like the world itself held its breath. Colonel Wolf's pupils constricted. The name Night Angel wasn't just a call sign. It was a ghost. A battlefield whisper. A myth traded between units in quiet corners of deployment zones. The kind of figure instructors referenced without confirming existence. Some operator, someone once did this, one man slipped 30 miles undetected. But Wolf had heard the truth once, spoken by General Carrick himself. And now that same ghost stood quietly before him. Wolf took a step back, almost involuntarily. "Sir, that's impossible." Night Angel disappeared after Black Dusk. The reports said. The man cut him off with a calm, almost weary breath. "Reports say what they need to." Breen looked between them, baffled. "Sir, what is this? Who is he?" Wolf didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied the man with the reverence one reserves for sacred ground. "Sergeant, you're standing in front of the operator who led the evac behind Carrick's final medal citation." Breen froze. "The one who cleared the ridge, alone?" Wolf nodded slowly. The man's sleeve shifted as he exhaled, revealing proof beat number 1. A thin, diagonal, unmistakable scar, the same scar referenced in the unredacted footnote of the after-action log Wolf once saw by accident. A mark from shrapnel when he shielded Carrick during the ambush. The colonel's voice dropped. "Sir, I thought you were killed." Night Angel's gaze softened, not sad, just accepting. I stepped aside. Gave others room to lead. Behind them, the ceremonial rifles clicked in sequence, a haunting counterpoint to the revelation unfolding at the gate. Breen's face drained. "Sir, I didn't know." "No," Night Angel replied gently. "You weren't meant to." A faint hum surfaced in Wolf's memory, a low rotor thrum under a night sky, a whisper through static, angel shadowing. "Move your men." He swallowed the emotion rising in his chest. "You don't need clearance," he said softly. "You belong here more than any of us. Some legends stay silent, until silence becomes impossible." But the cemetery hadn't yet absorbed the shock that Night Angel's return truly carried. A hush swept outward from the gate like a slow-moving ripple. Word traveled quickly, people didn't need details, they sensed the gravity. Heads turned. Officers straightened. Even the honor guard momentarily paused their preparation when Wolf raised a hand subtly toward them. Breen couldn't look the man in the eye. His earlier bravado crumbled like brittle stone. He stepped back, boots scraping, throat tight. "Sir, I spoke out of line." Night Angel offered no reproach. No lecture. Only silence, calm, unflinching, heavier than reprimand. A major approached cautiously. "Colonel, is that really?" Wolf nodded once. "Yes." The major's eyes widened. He bowed his head out of instinct, not protocol. Nearby attendees murmured, some in awe, some in disbelief. A woman touched her husband's arm. "I thought Night Angel was just a story." "So did I," he whispered. The air thickened with something unspoken. Reverence, regret, and the uneasy recognition that they had nearly barred one of the general's closest hidden brothers-in-arms. Night Angel watched the flag being unfolded at the distant gravesite. A crease ran along his jaw, subtle but filled with an ache he didn't voice. Breen rubbed a hand over his face. "Sir, if there's anything I can do." Night Angel's response was quiet. "Respect the uniform you wear. That's enough." The simplicity of the line hit harder than any reprimand. A gust of wind pushed through the cemetery, stirring the flags lining the walkway. Shadows swayed over the gravestones like the memory of men long gone shifting beneath the earth. Wolf finally exhaled. "We should escort you to the front, sir." Night Angel shook his head lightly. "No need for ceremony. I'll walk with the others." This humility, this refusal of honor, only deepened the silence around them. But accountability still waited, and the cemetery had not seen justice yet. Colonel Wolf turned slowly toward Breen, his voice cooling into military steel. "Sergeant. Step forward." Breen stiffened. "Sir, yes, sir." "In front of witnesses," Wolf continued, "you profiled, escalated, and attempted to remove an individual without verifying even the bare minimum of context." Breen swallowed. "Sir, I followed procedure." "No," Wolf corrected gently but firmly, "you leaned on procedure to excuse poor judgment." Night Angel remained silent, hands loosely clasped, watching without satisfaction or resentment. "Just witnessing." Wolf continued, "You let authority become arrogance. And you spoke to a man whose contributions you couldn't begin to fathom." Breen's shoulders sagged. "I understand, sir. You will stand down from detail for the remainder of the ceremony. And after this service, you will report for remedial conduct training with Commander Ruiz. Do you accept these terms?" Breen nodded. "Yes, sir. I do." Night Angel stepped forward slightly, not to interfere but to offer grace. "Colonel," he said quietly, "the boy meant no harm. He saw what he was trained to see." Wolf sighed. "That may be true. But training doesn't absolve responsibility." Night Angel's eyes softened. "Then let consequence teach him. Not shame." That single sentence shifted the tone. Breen blinked, glancing up with gratitude he couldn't express. Wolf nodded reluctantly. "Very well, sir." The air lightened just slightly. The kind of shift that happens when justice is measured, not vengeful. But the most human moment of all had yet to arrive. Night Angel approached the graveside alone. The crowd parted without instruction, like a tide retreating from a shoreline carved by history. His boots pressed softly into the grass, each step carrying the weight of memories no living record held. The flag draped over the casket glowed gently under the muted winter sun. Night Angel paused, letting the silence settle. Then he placed one gloved hand on the casket's edge. Not a tremor. Not a breath out of rhythm. Only a stillness shaped by decades of unspoken loyalty. A flash of memory slid across his expression, a grayscale flicker. Carrick laughing in a tent lit by lantern glow, maps spread out, sand dusting their sleeves. "If I go first," Carrick once said, "you better be there, Angel. Even if you walk through hell to do it." Night Angel whispered, not loud enough for anyone but the wind, "I'm here, brother." A single tear didn't fall. He didn't need it. His voice carried all the grief required. He stepped back, allowing the honor guard to proceed. A faint whisper floated through the crowd. "Some legends walk among us and never ask to be seen. And some truths stay hidden, until loyalty calls them home." But before the burial ended, one last silent exchange marked the final closure. As the rifles fired their 3 crisp volleys, birds scattered from distant treetops, their wings cutting arcs through the still winter light. The final note of taps drifted upward like a fading breath. Night Angel stepped back into the gathering shadows of the cemetery lane. He offered Wolf a single nod, a gesture heavy with gratitude, memory and unspoken understanding. Wolf returned it with the solemnity one gives only to the rarest figures in military history. Night Angel turned away, boots whispering over gravel, his coat brushing softly against his side. No entourage. No escort. Just a quiet man fading into the rows of stone, taking his legend with him. Somewhere far off, a faint radio-static hum seemed to echo, then dissolve. And just like that, the Night Angel vanished again.